This is a MJ production. Good day and a warm welcome to you all. My name is Marius, and on this YouTube channel there will be different series, and one of the series is called the Disability Sport Talk Show. In the Disability Sport Talk Show, I'm going to focus on different disabilities like visual impairment, cerebral palsy, paraplegics, etc., and therefore also different sporting codes. In some episodes, my guest and I will introduce you to a sport, and in other episodes, my guest and I will discuss more technical aspects of a specific sport. If you have any questions or suggestions, you are welcome to post it in the chat of this YouTube channel. Or you can go to the Facebook page, MJ Productions Shows. M for Mike, MJ Productions Shows. Chess, as we know it in its current format, originates from an Indian game called Chaturanga. The sport grew over the centuries and spread throughout Asia and Europe. Over the years, chess has undergone changes until it took its current format in the 16th century. It was not until the 19th century that a standard was established for playing pieces. There were also no chess clocks at first. Before the advent of chess clocks, a game could last up to 14 hours. Today in episode 3 of the Disability Sport Talk Show, Johan Grové and the Africa representative of the International Braille Chess Association, Johannes Grib, tell us more about chess for visually impaired. My first question to the two gentlemen was, referring to chess for visually impaired, what is the correct term to use?
Marius, it's kind of up in the air. It used to be Braille chess, but because Braille is not, there's no actual Braille in Braille chess, apart from the fact that it is tactile. So some Braille chess associations started calling themselves blind chess associations, which is also not quite correct because blind chess immediately makes me think of blindfold chess, which implies it could be sighted people playing as well. So for as long as the International Braille Chess Association is called International Braille Chess Association, I would go with Braille chess. Chess in general, according to rumors, started in the 16th century in India. In the 18th century, they started playing international tournaments, and there are 18th, 19th century, there are big names like Mikhail Tal, Steinitz. There are several big names whose games we today still study and learn from. Then Braille chess, every country obviously started independently. But in 1951, there was a correspondence tournament with 20 players representing 10 countries. And in 1958, they had their first over-the-board tournament. And officially then the IBCA was founded, International Braille Chess Association. Then in South Africa, we kind of did it backwards. So in 1992, Sandy License and Mike O'Sullivan helped us to send a Braille chess team to the IBCA Olympiad, and that consisted of Charles Kotze, Rinaldo Guelpa, Christo de Klerk, and Jabulani Sifunda. And after they returned, we actually founded the South African Braille Chess Association. From hence onward, up to 2017, we've managed to send a team to the Braille Chess Olympiad every 4 years. We actually have a special Braille, what we call a Braille chess set, where the black squares are raised 3 to 4 millimeters. The black pieces have a little dot on top, and every piece have a little dowel pin at the bottom that fits in a hole in the center of the square on the board. We lately also make use of magnetic chess sets, where the black squares are still raised. Then there's a little metal piece or magnet in the middle of the square as well as on the piece. The reason for a double magnet system is so that when you touch the piece, you don't just knock it over, which happened with weaker type magnets. Before we moved over to the Staunton shape pieces, we had what we call the metric shapes, and on those, the white pieces had the little dot on. But for us as a blind person, now that it is standardized to say that the black pieces are marked, if I give a set to a blind guy and I tell him, listen, the black pieces have the dot on, but the black pieces are actually white and the white pieces are black, he or she won't know the difference. So I'll just stick with the standard. The black pieces have the dot on. In terms of chess clocks, we lately have digital talking chess clocks. In the past, we made use of Braille chess clocks, which you could actually feel the hands and the time. And blind or deaf-blind chess players still today prefer the Braille chess clock to the digital because obviously they cannot hear the digital clock. Right, so FIDE, the international body for chess, sighted chess, made certain rules to accommodate Braille chess players. One, each player plays on his or her own board so that you don't have to waste or lose time while your opponent thinks and you cannot touch your board. Secondly, you have to announce your moves verbally. So when you make a move on your board, you announce it and your opponent then copy that move on his or her board. You also, instead of writing down your moves, can either do it in Braille or on a recorder, digital or tape. FIDE also allow for assistance. Assistant is a third party that can write down the moves for you, and very important, make sure that your board and your opponent's board look the same. Because it often happens that I make a move, announce a move, my opponent copies the move correctly, but he will move the wrong piece on his or her board, and a few moves down the line, there's a discrepancy on the boards, and if there was an assistant who checked the positions, that would have been avoided. Obviously, the sighted person will try to follow your hands, figure out what lines you are looking at. But if you're a skilled chess player, you will know how to confuse your opponent by looking at different lines to what you're actually calculating. And that is a method I often use when playing against sighted players.
How common is the game amongst female players?
Not as common as we would like, but it is developing. There are associations specifically for female chess who promotes chess amongst female players. And a couple of years ago, the Polgar sisters, Judith and Susan, made huge stirring in the chess world. Judith Polgar never wanted to play in female-only tournaments. She insisted in competing against men. Then last year, the Netflix Queen's Gambit movie was released, and I think that also gave the female chess players a great boost, and chess in general.
Even from school time, from primary school level even, fewer girls are exposed to chess compared to males. And very often you would find that there's a chess club at the school and there's like 24 boys playing and maybe one or two girls. So I can't say exactly what the reason would be, even in school level, but it literally starts at primary school level where less people, and even if you go to big tournaments like here at Afrikaans Boys High and Girls High in Pretoria, they often have huge chess tournaments with hundreds of players or even thousands of players sometimes. And you get there and you can look around and there's probably 8 or 9 boys for every girl present at the tournament. Maybe parents of girls don't think of chess as something that their girls should do. So it might also play a role. If you as a parent don't encourage your daughter to get involved with chess, then obviously, she's not going to even look at it as a possibility. And then that tendency is carried through high school, through university. When I was playing for Potchefstroom University many years ago, we had the same situation. Out of 15 players playing for the university, there was exactly 1 girl and 14 guys. So even there, at university level, you still see the same tendency. If I take my own wife, okay, she's fully sighted, so obviously she wouldn't be able to play Braille chess at any point. But I ask her, you are a brilliant chess player. Why don't you even consider to play in tournaments? And she said, without even thinking about it, she says to me, I don't like the competition side of it. I like to play chess. I know I can play chess really well, but I don't appreciate the whole competition thing about it. I rather play socially and friendly games than getting involved in tournaments. So I think for a lot of women, it might be the whole issue of competition and the stress of playing in a competition, and some of them just really don't like it.
So if I may come in here,
Yeah.
Traditionally women always did the homework, the work at home, and that obviously kept them away from lots of extramural activities like rugby and chess. And in my class, up to standard 6, we only had one girl in class. Standard 7, a second girl joined our class. But the ratio between male and female was such that of the 2 girls, one actually joined us in the chess club. And then as Johan pointed out, that chess is a game of war. So very few, well, they are male as well, but females
It doesn't come
traditionally don't
naturally
like
to females.
fight. Yeah, they don't want to fight for a win. And that is, kind people shouldn't play chess. I cannot remember who said that, but it was one of the grandmasters.
Yeah.
It's one of those chess quotes. Every 2 years, there's either singles or a team Olympiad that's now specifically for Braille chess, arranged by the IBCA. Although many countries invite players from other countries to take part. We've recently found out that in 2018 in Botswana, they sponsored 60 visually impaired children between the age of 10 and 17 to start playing Braille chess. And some of those kids should now be adults. And I'm trying to get hold of them and see, don't they want to come and play in one of our tournaments?
Are there any competitions like in European Championships, Africa Championships?
Not yet African Championships in Braille chess. In sighted chess, yes.
Yes.
But in Europe, there are tournaments for Braille players, yes. We have our own Olympiads, but it's not an Olympic sport, unfortunately.
Yeah, even for sighted people, chess is not part of the Olympic Games.
Does the International Braille Chess Association have any plans to make it part of the Paralympic Games?
We've tried, but Scrabble and chess and board games, they don't generally want to make.
No, because I said if they allow one, they might open the floodgates for 50 other board games to also suddenly become part of the Olympic Games, and they have no interest in doing that. So I don't foresee in the near future that point will be reached where chess would be recognized as an Olympic sport. I don't think they feel that they can put their heads in a bee nest if they do that.
Johan just mentioned the key word sport. So as soon as we can get chess classified as a sport, we have a foot to stand on and say, okay, it needs to be an Olympic sport. But currently, chess is not categorized as a sport.
Yeah, that is the biggest problem.
Does emotion play any role in chess?
Lots of it.
You can have this one. I get very emotional about this.
Yeah, I'm afraid it is a very much a psychological warfare. It has a huge impact on emotions. Having played in World Braille Chess Olympiads, similar to Johannes as well, you would sit behind the board and you would see that you're almost at the point where you feel that you can win this game. You just need a couple of more moves and your heart rate would go up, your blood pressure would go up. It has, even physiologically, it has a huge impact. It has a huge impact on your body. It actually impacts you, and mentally as well. And if I can speak from personal experience, I've never been upset really with other players. I played against opponents, but I've been upset with myself to the point where if you could do something to yourself at that point, you would actually consider that. I can get highly upset with myself when you play chess, you play well for 30, 40 moves, and you make one silly move and everything falls flat, all the wheels come off. And the only person I've been upset with is myself. It will sometimes take me bloody 2 days to get over it. I would be really upset with myself for making. So yes, emotion does play a big role in the whole thing. Psychologically, and like I said, even things like blood pressure, heart rate can be affected by playing chess. In one of the SA tournaments I played here in Pretoria, one of my opponents, now being visually impaired, I didn't even realize it at the time, and the tournament director came to me and he just tapped me on the shoulder and says to me, "Can we please stop the clocks?" I said, yes, because obviously the tournament director wouldn't ask that if there's no good reason for it. And he said to me, "Your opponent has developed a serious nosebleed, and I think we should just take him out and help him to sort it out." And I said, "Okay, stop the clocks. I'm perfectly happy to stop both clocks." he doesn't have to lose on time because of that. And they took him out of the hall and put some cold water on his back and neck and nose and cleaned him up and came back, and we continued the game a couple of minutes later. So yes, that is just to prove that even apart from just heart rate and blood pressure, but the blood pressure thing, that was exactly what caused his nosebleed. If your blood pressure goes dangerously high, one of the body's ways of coping with that is to automatically start a nosebleed so that you can get some of the pressure relieved. So yeah, so that is how seriously it can affect players.
They compare the physiological signs, heart rate, blood pressure, to someone driving Formula One rallies, Formula One Grand Prix.
Mm-hmm.
The amount of energy that you burn when playing chess just by using your brain, and the physiological signs going with that. And your next question, Marius, I anticipate you're going to ask if fitness plays a role in chess. If you're physically fit, all these abilities, your ability to control your emotions, to handle the stress, because let's face it, playing chess is highly stressful.
It is.
Because you calculate your position or your next few moves, and you miss something on the board, and your opponent do something that upsets your plans, and unfortunately that upsets you as well.
Unfortunately so.
If you fit, you just weather the whole game, even especially the longer games, you weather it better.
No, absolutely. I think it does play a big role. I now suddenly discovered why Johannes is playing significantly better nowadays. He's obviously much fitter than what I am. So, that is the one part of my chess I seriously need to work on, is my physical fitness. So, in a tournament, you can sit for 3 games of 3 hours on one day, so it gives you 9 hours of chess for the day, which is quite significant. Even when sighted players play in like an SA Open, they would play like 11 games for the entire tournament, but they will play it over 11 days. So you only play 1 5-hour game per day. But in our tournaments, we often play 3-hour games, and you can play as many as 3 of those games on a single day, and then another game 4 and 5 on the very next day. So 15 hours of chess in 2 days, but a full 9 hours on one of the days. And if you're not physically fit, it can have a huge impact on you, absolutely.
Kasparov wrote a book, How Life Imitates Chess, in which he tells us all about his world championship against Karpov, and how the championship was actually postponed because Karpov started developing health issues during the game or the tournament.
Absolutely right. And many of the grandmasters, and nowadays the category of 2,700 and even higher, called super grandmasters, travel with a medical physician to actually monitor their health during tournaments. That is how bad it is. Oh, I wouldn't say that's how bad it is, but that is how it is, full stop. Yeah. So,
no, it definitely has impact on your health, your fitness. That's definitely. And as Johan say, one game is fine.
Yeah.
You do feel the effect afterwards, but if you play a tournament, we have a friend here, Sam Brown, and in 2020 January he started playing with us at the Birchwood Open. He started off very strong, but as the tournament progressed, you could see how it taxes his energy and health, because he's not a very healthy person.
When played chess, are there any lessons that you can learn from it that you can apply in your day-to-day life?
Johan, you I think is a better person to ask this, to answer this for more than one reason, because of your studies as well.
Yeah, no, I definitely think so. And first of all, if lessons you can take from chess and basically transpose into real life situations, there are so many contact points here with real life situations. First of all, it helps you to be focused on a specific task much better than somebody who has never been exposed to the game. So it can really assist you to focus your full attention on one specific task and really work on it. Your analytical skill is normally very well developed. as a chess player or anybody that's been playing chess for a couple of years, where you can have a good couple of facts on the table and you can work through it, you can organize them, you can put them in a list of priorities. So your whole ability to analyze data and to get proper information at the end of the day, because you take raw data and you work with it and you organize it and you analyze it and you end up with proper information. So that whole ability is much better developed. So again, I even think a person who's never played chess before and then start playing at some point, and 2-3 years later, if you would test the person's analysis skills and stuff like that, you will most likely find that it has drastically improved. Also, it teaches things like patience, which I think is what all of us need to survive in South Africa most of the time. So that is something that you can definitely learn from chess, to be patient, to wait, not to be overreact, not to act too quickly and not look at all the facts. So I think it definitely helps you with many facets of life.
Especially in communication, you, as Johan say, you have a structure and you apply logic to that structure. So you know that I have to move this piece before I can move that piece.
Mm-hmm.
And then you also in communication give your opponent or the person whom you have the dialogue with chance to speak. You actually also listen before you know to make your next move or your next bit.
Absolutely.
What about chess makes it a special sport for you?
Yeah, if I can speak for myself, I would say that the reason why I'm totally fascinated by chess is the fact that even if you play the same opponent and you deliberately choose to play the very same opening and the same defense 20 times in a row, 20 games, one after the other, by changing one move somewhere in the game, whether it's move number 13, move number 25, move number 40, whatever, suddenly the entire board changes. So the possibilities is completely infinite. That to me is a huge mental challenge, and I think people who play chess and love to play chess are totally, don't want to use the word addicted necessarily, but that's maybe a bit strong, but we love the mental challenge that comes from chess, and to know that you can outwit your opponent by planning and executing your plan in such a way that you come out on top. That is definitely the mental challenge that comes with chess, and that you really have to dig deep and analyze and compare. And sometimes the fact that you have to run 2 or 3 or 4 plans parallel at the same time. Because, for instance, I would say, okay, if Marius moves his knight, then I'm going to do this. But if he moves his bishop, I'm going to do something else. And if he moves his queen, I'm still going to do another. So I work out 3 complete plans at the same time for each of those possible moves. So that once you move one of those 3 things, but there's also a possibility you're going to move a 4th thing that I didn't even think of. But should you move one of the 3 that I've already planned for, then I'm saving time, because you're also playing against time on your clock. And you can have a superposition much better than the opponent, and you can still lose the game purely on time. So you have to do very good time management on top of everything else. But that would be one of the techniques to save time, is to run 2 or 3 parallel plans, so that if the opponent play one of those, you can immediately respond, press the clock down, and you're back on the opponent's time. Those are the things I really love. The fact that it's multifaceted, that you have to not just play the game, know your strategy, know your openings, know your defenses, but you have to do time management as well. It really challenges you in a very big way.
So for me, although chess is not considered or officially considered a sport, to those adrenaline junkies, if you walk into a big venue like a Braille Chess Olympiad, or with these games we played in 2011, the Commonwealth Games.
Yeah.
The vibe in that play hall is just amazing.
Oh, yes.
You as a blind person can play against sighted people on equal terms.
Yeah.
You can play against other blind people, doesn't matter. Whereas with other sport disciplines, let's take blind bowls, for example. You cannot play if you don't have a director, a person who tells you where to throw the ball or where to do what. With chess, you can absolutely play all by yourself and really compete on equal terms. That to me is a big thing.
Absolutely.
So opportunity. There's so much more opportunity to play chess than, for example, Go ball. I can go online, I can go on leadchess.org and I can start a chess game. Whereas if I want to play Go ball, I first have to get a team, a hall, much more administration.
And then hope that there's no COVID that will prevent you from even playing the game.
Ek gooi daai krom oomie se kierie onder hom uit.
Ja, dear, kyk.
I don't play chess very well, and please tell me if you disagree with me. But for me, there are three basic things about chess. First, it is not to capture all your opponent's pieces, but to put your opponent's king into checkmate. Secondly, to create space for yourself. And thirdly, to control the middle of the board.
I think everything you say is definitely true. The second one you referred to was the issue of space. It is called the element of space in chess, where you make maximum use and create maximum space for yourself on the board and so on, and also to use the maximum space as well. Yeah, those things are all true. Of course, there's a good couple of other things that can also come into play, but yes, indeed, the object is not to capture as many pieces as you can. Some people do play chess like that, unfortunately, but that is really not the purpose. The number one purpose will always be to put the opponent's king in checkmate. And the better you play, the most likely you are to do it in less moves. So you can get the checkmate in 17 moves, 23 moves, 28 moves, whatever, if you play really well, really accurate, and make full use of, if the opponent make a mistake, take full advantage of that particular mistake, and that way. So coming back to tournament as well, you can then, even if it's 3 hour games, three hour games on one day, you can, by playing accurately and aggressive, you can end your game after an hour in the first round, for instance, and then you, by doing that, create more time for yourself to rest and to just walk around and instead of sitting the full 3 hours behind the board. So yeah, there are many ways of controlling the circumstances by doing stuff like that. But if you miss an opportunity, and then you might have to fight another 20 moves further, and hopefully you will get another opportunity, and then eventually you almost running out of time and you have to rush to not lose on time and stuff like that. So then it becomes complicated. So one have to, again, stay focused and try and finish the game with as few as possible moves. And yes, definitely to check the opponent's king is always your number one goal.
Checkmate is the goal of the game. There are two other conditions that can end the game. One is your opponent's time is up.
Yeah.
Or what we call stalemate. That is a very rare occasion, but it does happen. And then the cowboy trick, if the players offer each other a draw, if they decide that it's not worth playing the game, nothing is going to happen, there won't be a checkmate, they draw. Then space, yes, create as much space for yourself and restrict your opponent's movement as far as possible. And this is where chess coaching is very important, to learn of pawn structures and strong bishop versus weak bishop. With each bishop, there are two and each one moves on a different color. And you need to put your pawns on the color that your opponent's bishop moves on so that he cannot get a lot of space out of that bishop. Games are very important, and there's three main components in a chess game: the opening, the middle game, and the end game. And it's worthwhile spending time on all three parts of that when you do studying. Controlling the center, yes, for beginners, it's very important. But sometimes you need to play around the center. But there's always something I try to teach people: a knight on the rim is dim.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Unless there's a strong piece that you can capture on the rim of the board. And then you also said eating chess or vreedskaap. That's not the goal of the game.
No.
I played a game, I played white. I don't know who my opponent was, but I can remember the game clearly. I made moves and I could capture queen and rooks and stuff. And afterwards people said, why didn't you do this and this and this? I said, well, it doesn't put him in checkmate.
Exactly.
Are there any blind-friendly software that you can use?
There are many, both
I
on
think
the
there's
PC and on the phone. So Johan, you can go first and I'll...
on the iPhone, what is popular worldwide chess-wise, I have chess-wise Pro on my phone. I also have Chess Studio on my phone. That is really good, and accessibility is really good on that. And then on the computer side, I really don't know about that many. I see both Johan van Zyl and Christo de Klerk has mentioned two programs that works on Windows. I don't have either of those. The only thing I have that I can definitely say is accessible is my Winboard. And Winboard was written many years ago, probably 20 years ago, if not longer, by the same people who created JAWS for Windows. And it is still available from the Freedom Scientific website today. Though the names have changed so many times, I believe it's now even something different. But anyhow, you can still download Winboard for free. And that works not only with JAWS, but it works perfectly with NVDA, the other text-to-speech software as well. But Johannes will also obviously know a lot about these things.
Although I prefer not to use computer chess, there are command line stuffs in Linux, GNU Chess, that is accessible.
Okay.
I think there's a chess program for Windows itself that works with speed screen readers. And as Johan now mentioned, Winboard for JAWS. The program Christo mentioned from Archangles is K-Chess Elite.
Yeah, that's the one.
I think I looked at it when it was released like 20 odd years ago, but I never
looked at it recently.
Yeah. And then there's Nathan Tech. Nathan is one of the new kids on the block who writes a lot of accessible stuff. He's got a audio program, Calipio, that's quite handy. And he now wrote a thing called Accessible Chess. What might be nice about Accessible Chess is the fact that you can play different variants.
I saw this whole list of variants.
Fisher Random. I really enjoy what they call Fisher Random or 960 Chess.
960 Chess.
I love it.
I've actually never played it, but I am interested to play it at some point, and I would definitely like the opportunity to play it a bit, because I can see the benefit of that, not to learn little patterns, fixed patterns all the time, but to work from a completely new and different board position and basically plan and analyze from scratch. There's nothing to work on, and I personally would love that, because that's a part of the game I really like.
And then I think there's also a program called Shredder that's available on both.
Oh yeah, Shredder is also available for the mobile phones. That's right.
And obviously the partially sighted people have just a much wider range. They got Fritz and they got Chess Base, you name it. The problem is when it comes to the chess engine that you're using, the strength of the program that you use is determined by the chess engine. Well, mainly the chess engine, secondary your amount of RAM in your computer, and the processor. Therefore, your iPhone apps won't be as strong as your computer apps. That's today. I don't know what it will look like tomorrow.
Yeah, I must say on my iPhone 12 Pro with 256, but that's just the storage space, of course, but both the A6 processor that's in there and the amount of internal memory, I think it might be better than some of my older computers, desktops I had even at this point in time. So yeah, they are definitely catching up, that's for sure.
For those who have no knowledge of this sport, how does one play chess? What pieces are there and how can they move?
The game of chess consists of 32 pieces, 16 pieces for the black side and 16 pieces for the white side. They are set up in two rows. The first row is only pawns. The second row are all the what we call officers, your rook, your knight, your bishop, your queen, your king, then your second bishop, second rook, second knight and second rook. Usually the pawns move first, although your two knights can also be used to move first. Each piece has a different way of moving. Your pawns can only move forward. Your rooks can only move in straight lines, bishops in diagonals. The queen can move combination of diagonal and straight lines, either straight line or a diagonal, not both. And your knights usually move in the sighted letter L shapes, and then the king moves the same as the king, but can only move one square at a time. That's in short.
When you start the game, your pieces are placed as follows from left to right in the row closest to you. In the row closest to you, if you play white, you have the rook, knight, bishop, white queen on the white square, then king, another bishop, knight and rook. If you play black, the pieces are exactly the same except that the king and queen are swapped. You can remember it like this, that the white queen comes on the white square and the black queen on the black square. In the row in front of these pieces you have 8 pawns.
So the board is divided into files and ranks. So your files are from left to right as you read, A, B, C, D to H, and your ranks from white to black are from 1 to 8. And if you go from left to right, the way you mentioned is correct. Rook, knight, bishop, queen, king, bishop, knight, rook.
How does the time rule work?
The time is basically predetermined by the person who organizes the tournament or the tournament director. So even when you send your invitation out to players, you will say, we are playing 5 rounds of a 60-60 tournament. And that simply means there's 60 minutes for each player on their clock independently. So white has the player playing white pieces has 60 minutes and the player playing black pieces has 60 minutes. And then, of course, the way the time control work is that you need to complete your move and with the same hand press the clock down, which means your clock will stop and the opponent's clock will start running. And only once the opponent has completed his or her move, then they can stop the clock by pressing the little pin on the top down on their side, and that will make your side run again and so on. Tournaments where, like I said, even when it's advertised and promoted, they will say to you, it's a 60-60 tournament, it's a 90-90 tournament, it's a 45-45 tournament, whatever the case. And that is indication of the actual time that will go on each clock.
Affordability. It's obviously not cheap to buy a chess set. One of the cheapest sets now I purchased from this guy in Stellenbosch. I'm waiting for it to be delivered. A basic chess set plus the Postnet courier is setting me back 870 Rand. For a new player is quite a layout.
But the good news is one can, if you look after your board and you don't deliberately drop it and bump it into anything, it can probably last you, 15, 20 years. I've got chess sets here that's like 20 years old that's still working perfectly. So if one look after it, you can really use it for many, many, many years to come.
There's always possibility of somebody who decides chess is not for them and they want to get rid of a set. I bought Jessica, you can say almost brand new set now for 500 Rand. Yeah. It was about 6 months ago or a year ago. And then
also, people sometimes pass away, and then their family would say, but there's nobody else who's visually impaired, and we're sitting with this Braille Chess set, so we would like to rather pass it on to somebody that can practically use it. So that also happens.
And donations. We do get people who just feel they got money, they want to donate 10 chess sets to a club or some stuff like that. It happens. Only to say that in South Africa, if anybody wants to know more or get involved with Braille Chess, they're very welcome to contact either myself or Johan. It's not always, it's easier to find sighted clubs than to find Braille clubs because there is only one, and I think that is in Winelands. We don't have an official club here in Gauteng, but we have a strong group of players, and any and all of us are willing to help and promote Braille Chess.
No, I think Johannes is definitely also the right person to contact because he's got the contact details for most of the players. He's got contact details for the clubs that do exist, although like Johannes mentioned now, there's actually just a few clubs currently, but there are a lot of players, including new players, that is now interested in playing again. So I feel very positive that Braille Chess will actually grow currently. Yeah, we need to encourage the new players as well to get involved and to just enjoy the game. Whether it's over the board or online, wouldn't make a difference.
This brought us to the end of episode 3 of the Disability Sport Talk Show. A big thank you to Johan Grové and Johannes Grib. Johannes is currently the Secretary of the South African Braille Chess Association, as well as the Africa representative of the International Braille Chess Association. If you would like to contact Johannes, you are welcome to send an email to johannesgrib, john@gmail.com. I will spell it to you. JOHANN, it is N for November, ESGRIB for Bravo, @gmail.com. Johannes Grib, JOHANNESGRIB @gmail.com. Or you can send a WhatsApp message to +27 82 358 2500. +27 82 358 2500. You can also find the contact details of Johannes on the Facebook page of MJ Productions shows. In another episode, we will discuss more technical aspects of chess. Your feedback of this episode will be appreciated. You are welcome to share the link of this YouTube channel. Again, thank you to Johannes and Johan. Till next time, goodbye and stay safe. This was a MJ production.